Well, we can do that tonight.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Are we live? Okay, we are live. Thank you very much for just confirming. Good afternoon, everybody. Nice to see members of council here. We have some members of our staff here joining us as well for this special council meeting. It is Thursday, February the 9th, 2023. Our meeting was scheduled for 3:30. We're just getting underway because I don't know, I was delayed. Sorry about that. So we're just getting underway. This is a special council meeting, and we are going to have a discussion with a presentation from Chris Hughes. And that's pretty well it on the agenda until 6:30 when we come back for our public meeting portion of the council meeting. So at this time, I will call for the approval of the agenda. Recommendation be it resolved that the agenda dated February 9, 2023 be approved as presented. Is there a mover and seconder? Mr. Walker, Councillor Deneen, thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, I'll call the motion. All those in favor? And it carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Disclosure, pecuniary interest and general nature thereof. Anybody got any disclosures of the full agenda? I will not be asking that at 6:30, so I'm just giving everybody a heads up. Okay. If anything comes up, please bring it forward. We'll deal with it as appropriately as we can. Council, this is a special council meeting, and we've called this portion to have a presentation from Chris Hughes, who is a partner with BC Hughes, and they are going to provide us an update on the Clearview Sustainable and Strategic Tourism Plan. So before Chris comes forward, I'd like to call upon Terry Vachon, General Manager of that department. Terry, nice to see you this afternoon. Terry, why don't you tell us a little bit about how we got to this presentation?
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you, Your Worship. So yes, like Your Worship said, in 2022, our Parks and Recreation Department took on the plan of applying for government funding to do this tourism plan. The department went through an RFP, or request for proposal process, and the firm of BC Hughes were the lucky winners of that bid. So our team member here, Amanda Murray, who I'll invite to the podium very shortly, was instrumental in providing the guidance and working, boots on the ground with the consultants to really pull off this amazing plan. A lot of community consultation was done as part of the project. BC Hughes will explain the process that they took to engage the public, to engage our stakeholders and our partners. And so without further ado, Your Worship, with your permission, I'd like to invite Miss Amanda Murray to the podium to present her report. Thank
you. Welcome, Miss Murray. Nice to see you again.
Thank you very much, Your Worship, and welcome members of council. So to Terry's point, this afternoon's presentation is on the Sustainable and Strategic Tourism Plan, and I will invite Chris Hughes to come up and make the presentation. Following the PowerPoint presentation, there will be an opportunity for members of council to ask questions of Chris, as well as Terry and myself are here to answer any questions about the rest of the plan and how it will be implemented moving forward. So we've had a great relationship these last 6 months working with BC Hughes. We've also done numerous community consultations, surveys with our residents and our tourism operators. So I think you'll find that between the presentation and the report contained within the agenda today, that it's a very robust plan, and it will be part of the strategic planning process moving forward. So at this time, with your permission, Your Worship, I'll have Chris come up and start the presentation.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Amanda, for all the work you've done on this. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you.
Come forward.
Your Worship and
Nice
council and staff. Glad to be here. Chris Hughes from BC Hughes, my partner in life and my partner in business, Bev Hughes. We're a team effort. And I'm really happy to be here today to present the Strategic Sustainable Tourism Plan. So I'm going to run you through that. I've got only 68 slides to go through, but I will do it with vigor and excitement. And as Your Worship mentioned, we'll have time for questions and comments afterwards. So with that, I'll get cruising here. So a little bit about who we are. Oops. There we go. There, that's us. We're located just outside of Owen Sound. So we're in Grey County. So we're neighbors to Clearview Township. And we've been in business since 2006 doing consulting predominantly in the tourism industry. So we work with destinations, destination marketing organizations, municipalities, We work with regional tourism organizations, and we do work across Canada as well. We do a lot of work in Saskatchewan, and we just signed some work in the province of Manitoba. So we do love the space. I always describe it that we're in the happy people business. Our goal and job is to make people happy and get out their wallets and pay for it accordingly. So that's the business that we're in. On the who we are slide, sorry, still is, so that's Bev, that's myself. And then Kristen Schaub also works for us. So we're a mighty team of three. A little bit more about who we are. Next slide. This was, I mentioned, we do quite a bit of work in Saskatchewan, and this is an experience, a Canadian signature experience we helped put together called the Hanwi Moon Full Moon Dinner Experience. And this is at Wanuskewin in Saskatoon. And this is a really, really special experience where you get to dine under the full moon with full Indigenous interpretation in accordance to, the meaning of the full moon. And it's a really exceptional experience that we were really proud to be part of. Next slide, please. And another one close to home. This one is of the Group of 7 touring route in Northern Ontario. So we were asked by the province of Ontario to help put together a Group of 7 touring product. And this is located throughout the whole North Shore of Lake Superior. Really phenomenal experience where you get to go and sit in situ where members of the Group of 7 actually sketched and painted and learned some interpretation and learned the story about what made them go there. So that was a really cool thing. Just a couple of examples there to provide you with what we do. Next slide, please. And our focus, I guess I have to advance this one too. Our focus is we want to understand your assets. We want to develop your best bet experiences, and we want to build partnerships and sell your market ready products. So that's sort of the focus of how our business works. And for today's agenda, I want to talk to you about 5 things. So I want to talk to you about the goals of the project that Terry had mentioned briefly. I want to talk to you about the process, the situation analysis, and then the meat of the report is the recommendations, and then we'll have some time for some questions at the end. Next slide, and then goals. Next slide, please. So the goals that we came up with, we developed this right early on in the project, and I'll just read this to you. This strategic and sustainable tourism plan, a 5-year plan for tourism development in the township of Clearview, will consider the current and future tourism environments, stakeholder input, and review current tourism research to formulate recommendations surrounding how to continue to support tourism developments and smiles in the region. So that was our overarching goal for the project. Next slide, please. And we'll achieve the goals in the following ways: by providing guidance and prioritize the tourism task, explore how to best attract visitors to support and benefit the local economy and strengthen the local community, recommend ways to embrace opportunities to boost tourism through destination experience development, consider the resources required to support tourism activities in the township, and show appreciation for the natural environment and its well-being. Next slide, please. In terms of the process, next slide, please. So multi-step process, a little difficult to read, but we did it in multiple steps, where the first step was the research review. So we looked at all the research that was currently available within the region, right from Simcoe County, Regional Tourism Organization 7, industry best practices and trends. Then we undertook a pretty robust stakeholder survey process where we surveyed residents, tourism operators, and key stakeholders in the region. We undertook site visits, so we spent quite a bit of time on the ground. We're close by, so we're in the area quite a bit. So we were touring around, learning more, and meeting with operators, which was a lot of fun. And then we held our workshop with select operators and members of council and key staff. And then that outputs the strategic and sustainable tourism plan. In terms of plan influencers, we didn't want to build this plan in isolation. We always want to look at what's happening around you. So we looked at, obviously what's happening in Simcoe County, RTO 7, Destination Ontario, South Georgian Bay, Wasaga Beach, Collingwood, Town of Blue Mountains, etc. So we looked at everything that is happening in the tourism environments in those communities to provide input into this plan. And then with that, we created the situational analysis. Next slide. And that basically encompasses the document review, 14 key stakeholder one-on-one interviews we did. We had 196 community surveys responded to, which was outstanding. And we had 24 tourism operator surveys, and then we had our workshop. And out of all of that research came the SWOT analysis. And with the SWOT, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, the strengths as outlined here bubbled to the surface in all of those conversations that we had with all the engagement that we had. So things like small towns, small town charm, these are all strengths, outdoor escarpment trail cycling, live entertainment, culinary assets, festivals, small halls came up very strongly, fun roads for touring, day tripping, the Clearview came up a lot, the recreational assets that you have, the sense of community and the large amount of drive-by traffic were all strengths that were identified. In terms of weaknesses, things like we heard a lot about lack of accommodation, short-term rental restrictions, labor shortages. Labor came up a lot. It was really struggle. The business community and their surveys, expressed that they're unable to stay open for long periods of time because of labor shortages. So that's a real issue, a real weakness. Shortage of accessible housing, no clear vision for tourism, marketing, limited attractions, limited mix of tourism businesses, seasonality, signage. Tourism is not the core focus for the township. We heard lots of things there that added to that, the category of the weaknesses. In terms of opportunities, lots of opportunities for Clearview Township: proximity to urban markets, proximity to other popular destinations, the proximity to large regional accommodation bases, which has seen a lot of growth in the past 5 years, the new casino, the MAT tax opportunity, just lots of opportunities here, renewed interest and increased interest in the outdoors because of COVID. So lots of opportunity there. Remote working is on trend, and drive destinations are really popular, again, in part due to the global pandemic. In terms of threats, some few similarities here. Proximity to other destinations is also a threat. These are things that are outside of our control. The drive-through community, major routes bypass small towns, the divide between tourism and the agricultural community, lack of investment in tourism infrastructure, gas prices, the recession. Now we're dealing with interest rates, food prices, highway safety, the pandemic, et cetera, were the threats. So lots of things were captured in there as well. Next slide, please. And I just wanted to touch on accommodations came up across the board in all of our discussions. And we all know that Clearview has a limited supply of accommodations, while around you has a large supply of overnight rooms. And we just pulled together, next slide, please, this little map that demonstrates this. And this is of no surprise to all of you, but it just shows you from a competition point of view, the rooms availabilities in your with your neighbors. So as an example, Town of Blue Mountains has just over 1,300 rooms with 298 short-term accommodations. Collingwood has, and those are legal ones. Collingwood has 916 room nights. Wasaga Beach is just over 1,000. Barrie just over 1,300 with 580 short-term accommodation rentals. So quite a bit of stock, and we do recognize that there is a bit of an underground economy with short-term accommodation rentals in Clearview as well. But we didn't reflect that here because we were only focused on legal properties. Also, just finishing up on the situational analysis, we looked a lot at trends, and these are across the board, across the country, what consumers are looking for. And they're looking for two main things in terms of experiential travel and transformative travel. So these are things that get people doing things, being hands-on, being engaged, and really make that connection with the destination. And then in terms of transformative travel, they really want that sense of accomplishment of learning something. So we're trying to think of, again, how Clearview can capitalize on these trends that are happening, across the country. Next slide. In terms of recommendations, So we started off with developing a tourism vision and mission, as we always do and always should. So in terms of tourism vision, I'll just read this here, is to be a distinctive Ontario community, showcasing the charm of rural living, small town authenticity, rugged natural beauty, all positioned close to the mountain and beaches, and with a flourishing food and farming culture scene. So that's the vision that we helped put together. In terms of the mission, what it describes is, together with our community stakeholders, we work to generate economic prosperity through tourism while being sustainable and providing visitors as well as locals with recreational opportunities and enhanced quality of life. So just wanted to touch on that one for a second. Then really important piece here is the local connection. We really want the locals to benefit through tourism. So everything that we did in this plan sort of has that lens on it of ways that the local people can, their quality of life can be benefited from tourism. Next slide. Yeah, thank you. So in terms of recommendations, lots of recommendations in the plan. These are actions. We structured them into action items so that they can be easily transferred into an action plan, if you will, so that they can get undertaken. The first one we're looking at here is in terms of target markets for tourism initiatives. And the recommendation here is that focus tourism development and marketing on best bet markets that align with Clearview's tourism strengths and brand. So it's always really important that we identify who our target audience is, or audiences are, when positioning a destination. And in terms of the action items in this recommendation, we want to help define Clearview's best bet tourism target markets to be able to make all the other decisions going forward. We want to request that Simcoe County attain the Environics affluent suburban family segment profile from Environics. So just a little backstory here. The county has done a phenomenal job at segmenting out their visitor types. We're just requesting that they do a little more digging and mining as it relates to Clearview Township to help you define those target markets a little deeper, and they're certainly willing to do that. And then we want to consider targeting the following markets that align with Simcoe County's targeted segments, and they're based on the three here we see on the screen: the affluent established families, the affluent suburban families, and the countryside families. So these are three markets that the county is currently going after, and we're recommending that Clearview, definitely follow suit with those targets as well. In terms of next slide, please. The next broad recommendation is with respect to marketing. So it's to increase awareness of Clearview as a tourism destination. And the first recommendation, next slide, please, is to develop an annual tourism marketing plan that targets those best bet visitor markets. So documenting all of this into an actual marketing plan is useful for all destinations to do. And in terms of the actions here, looking at document tourism marketing tactics, budgets, allocations, timelines, and partners. Outline 4 seasonal campaigns. So we're recommending an approach where you do 4 different seasonal campaigns throughout the season to target those target audiences and hopefully drive business in shoulder seasons as well. Develop a I Love Clearview campaign. So this is designed as much for locals as it is for visitors to really create that sense of pride and create that sense of place. And then partner with RTO7, Tourism Simcoe County and South Georgian Bay to create content to leverage assets and increase the campaign reach. So there's a lot of people around you who are already doing a lot of marketing, and it just makes sense to partner with those and leverage those resources wherever possible. Next slide. The second recommendation is to enhance the social media presence. Lots of actions here. Next slide, please. Digital media is the #1 tool to attract visitors to a region. So we're just recommending some refinements to your current tourism profile on the internets, on the World Wide Web. So the first one here is to refine tourism only social media channels. So Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. So those are channels with just specific messaging with regards to tourism. So it doesn't have things like postings about garbage collection day or, elections or things, other municipal business. We see it should be really separated between the two mediums. Create an annual social media content calendar, develop a list of hashtags to be used on an ongoing basis, invest in professional photography and video assets, create engaging tourism content to post on the social media channels, leverage the social media channels of Tourism Simcoe County and RTO7, host social media influencers, and again, partner with Tourism Simcoe County and RTO7 to help create that content and gather those video and photo assets. So lots of things there with regards to social media, but it is very impactful when done correctly to attract people to the community. The third marketing recommendation here is to build a content-rich tourism website. Again, similar to social media, we're recommending that you separate out the tourism content from the municipal content. And this just allows you more flexibility to be creative and to create the interest in the community. So doing that in three different ways here: create a content-driven website themed around Clearview's core experience offers, use third-party content creators to develop engaging stories on a frequent basis, and design the site to exemplify the Clearview brand and essence of place. So always fall in line with the Clearview brand values and brand guidelines. And just an example of a case study, next slide. We just finished some work with the Township of Huron-Kinloss, which is very, very similar to Clearview Township with respect to size, makeup, geography, attractions. It's very similar. It's very rural. And they just launched a brand new website that's just being launched now that we recommend that we look at as a possible example for Clearview Township to develop. So that site's just currently being launched now, but we recommend looking at that as an example. Fourth marketing recommendation is to enhance the industry awareness of tourism initiatives led by Clearview Township and other tourism stakeholders. So this is basically to develop and deploy a quarterly newsletter to the industry to tell them what's going on with the industry. Information is power, and we recommend that doing that on a frequent basis would be advantageous. The next recommendation, number 5, the same sort of thing, but targeting local residents. So a quarterly information deployment to local residents, again, helping build that sense of pride, that sense of place, letting them know what all is happening from a tourism perspective would be advantageous. Marketing recommendation number 6. We love your tear-off map that you currently produce. We're recommending that we expand that into a multi-panel, full-out navigational map for the municipality. So to create a larger branded map format to act as the signature fulfillment piece. So you can put all market-ready, developed attractions, experiences, things such as ATV, snowmobile staging areas, et cetera, put everything on this map. And we do have some examples from other clients and other areas that do print maps. Print is not dead in tourism, much to a lot of people think it's 100% digital, but people really respect and appreciate a printed piece of fulfillment. So we're recommending building out your tourism map just to be a little stronger and it could work really well. Next recommendation, broad recommendation, is to create places for visitors to stay. And the strategic objective here is to increase the capacity of overnight accommodations in Clearview Township. And the first recommendation in the plan is to regulate and permit short-term accommodations within the municipality. And in terms of action items, next slide, please. What we're looking at here is to develop a short-term accommodation licensing program and corresponding short-term accommodation regulations for the township. Consider developing a municipal accommodation tax, otherwise known as a MAT tax, to apply to those short-term rentals. Allow short-term accommodations such as Airbnb and VRBO to operate within the township. Encourage the development of unique accommodation types such as geodomes, yurts, pods, tiny homes, cabins, farm stays, and historic homes, and then educate the local residents on the benefits of STAs and and how they will be managed and allowed, and the economic returns anticipated based on licensing and the MAT. And I just wanted to provide a case study in the presentation here about from North Bruce Peninsula. They were just successful in implementing their first year of an STA licensing program. They've applied a 4% municipal accommodation tax to those short-term accommodation properties. And in terms of how it sort of played out in this past season, they've licensed 325 properties. I don't have final revenue numbers, but their projected revenue was $180,000 in just license fees, approximately $195,000 to run the program. So a little bit of a deficit there. The projected MAT revenue was $615,000. So 300,000 of that approximately going to a local tourism group and 300,000 going directly to the municipality. So it can provide financial benefit, but more importantly, it provides community benefit through regulation and licensing and eliminating all of the bad apples. That was what it was running rampant and beyond their control, and they were having a lot of complaints within the municipality. And this process has seemed to really quiet things down in terms of the complaints. And it's worth further investigation in terms of looking at that as an option for Clearview Township. Another case study here I just wanted to put in terms of alternative accommodation is right close to you, close to Aurelia, is a place called Glen Oro Farm. So, and that municipality has permitted this operator to build out 14 different units, accommodation types using geodesic domes and glamping tents on their farm. They've become a real leader in Ontario in terms of providing alternative accommodation. So that's just something happening currently in market, existing, legal, that it could be something that you could consider and could look at as an option for here as well. Next recommendation number 2 under accommodations is to consider RV camping as a way to increase visitor overnight stays. The RV market, especially during COVID, absolutely exploded in popularity. It was very difficult to purchase a unit, and the demand for campsites across the province specifically seems to be the supply just isn't there in terms of the number of people looking for campsites. So in terms of actions here, what we're looking at is discuss the benefits and challenges of operating a municipal campground with fellow municipal operators, undertake a feasibility study to strategically investigate the opportunities surrounding the development of a municipal RV campground, and then if fruitful, undertake a business plan and site plan if the feasibility returns positive results. So something to look at. A case study, like to use lots of case studies so that you can see that things are happening in market, is Memorial Park in Meaford. And it's a very successful waterfront campground that we know well. We've been going there for, I think, 15 years as a family consecutively, but it works for the municipality. And just some numbers at the bottom there. Out of 2021 generated $502,000 in revenue. Expenses were $503,500. Included in that is $170,000 contribution to reserves. So it is making money for the municipality and providing a service to bring people into the community. So just again, another close by, fairly relevant neighbor to look at as a possible example for Clearview. Next theme of recommendations, resources to support tourism, because it always needs resources to run a well-oiled tourism machine. The strategic objective here is to ensure tourism is effectively resourced. The first recommendation here is to establish a dedicated tourism budget. So we're recommending that this be, however you do your budgeting process, but tourism gets its own sort of line item, in the overall budget, and with its sort of dedicated work plan associated to that. So it helps you determine the overall value and the contribution into the overall budget. So that's the first recommendation there. The second one is in terms of staffing, recommending adding an additional staff to the Parks Culture Recreation Department. So add one full-time year-round recreation staff member to the team tasked with undertaking all recreational responsibilities previously assigned to the Community Culture and Tourism Coordinator. Adjust the community culture and tourism personnel's responsibilities to only manage tourism and culture related tasks, working with the industry to deliver the task as outlined in this plan. So some recommendations there. Third recommendation under resources, establish a community tourism collective. So we thought about this a lot and tried to determine, whether or not a formal committee is required, but we're recommending a more informal collective group of citizens and business owners that could sit around the table on an informal basis to talk about tourism opportunities, challenges for the municipality. So having that continued community engagement we see as pretty important. Under resources, recommendation number 4, work to find solutions to the tourism labor crisis. As I mentioned, this is a big one in the tourism industry that doesn't have an easy solution. A couple of actions here: develop an ad hoc working group led by the Economic Development Advisory Committee to discuss the issues among stakeholders, and encourage Clearview stakeholders to leverage labor resources available from RTO 7 and Simcoe County. So Simcoe County is doing quite a bit on the labor front. RTO 7, next slide, please, in terms of a little case study. They do provide funding for businesses up to $1,000 for businesses with less than 100 employees and $2,500 for businesses with over 100 employees to undertake a recruitment social media campaign. So that's a little way that can help people try and recruit staff, but definitely the whole issue needs further discussion for sure. Recommendation number 5 under resources, continue to ensure high-speed internet is available to all residents and businesses. In the tourism industry, this is really important because we want people on their devices sharing content, posting content to their social media. And we wanted to make sure that this was reflected as a municipal recommendation because tourism does rely heavily on high-speed internet services. So wanted to make sure that was reflected in this plan. In terms of last main recommendation here under tourism experience development, so the strategic objective here is to offer a roster of market-ready, best-in-class tourism products and experiences. These are the things that make you well-known as a destination. So the first recommendation here is to create a new tourism experience called Clearviews, and that would showcase the top 10 scenic vistas within the municipality. So the actions here would be to identify the top 10 most scenic views in the municipality and position them as a touring route. And then the second one here is to ensure that each site is market ready with adequate safe parking, signage, wayfinding, washroom facilities if required. So would be some capital required with this recommendation, but it's in your name. It came up quite a bit in the discussions about the views across the municipality. So we thought, why not capitalize on it and develop a tourism product around those views, scenic vistas and viewpoints around the municipality. The second one here under experiences is to continue to work with Tourism Simcoe County to position Clearview as a signature cycling destination within Ontario. I'm an avid cyclist and I asked a lot of my cycling friends about Clearview, and there is a significant opportunity here to own cycling within the province of Ontario. You have a tremendous cycling product and experience already, but there are some things that we can do to help, advance that even further. So next slide, please. In terms of recommendations, we're recommending that we inventory all known cycling routes, both paved, gravel, and off-road, and showcase those on the official visitor map. Continue to support existing cycling events and work with partners to develop new ones. Create a cycling and resident education program to ensure a welcoming and safe cycling environment. We do realize that there are conflicts sometimes between the community and cyclists. Continue to work with Ontario by Bike and Cycle Simcoe. So there's two really strong programs there that help you improve your cycling product. Consider the cycling experience when undertaking any signage, wayfinding, road maintenance, and new construction projects, i.e. things like paved shoulders wherever possible. In terms of case study here, just wanted to provide a little more detail on Cycle Simcoe because the county is extremely active in cycle tourism development. and they've seen the growth, from 2017 to 2022, from 60,000 to 120,000 trips, realized spending of about 1.3 million. So it is driving economic benefit to the communities. Just over 4,000 overnight stays attributed to cycling. People come from all over Ontario. And again, the county does contribute significantly to cycling promotion and development. And there's over 80 certified cycle-friendly businesses listed throughout the county. So it is something that they've grabbed onto to really promote, and we recommend that Clearview does the same as well. Recommendation number 3 under experiences is to investigate the power sports market. Again, COVID drove a lot of growth in power sports, both, motorcycle, ATV, snowmobile, even down to things like scooters. But we're recommending here that you do a little more investigative work to investigate where you best align with this market, and where the possibilities and where the growth can happen. So it is sitting there as a huge opportunity to benefit from, and we're recommending just a little more work to investigate what that might look like for Clearview. In terms of recommendation number 4, continue to support and expand the Small Halls Festival. Award-winning. You guys have done a phenomenal job with this product, with this experience, and we're recommending that you actually expand it out to be a year-round experience, and position all of the live music theater shows that happen within the municipality under the umbrella of Small Halls. So there's some opportunity there. And then consider possibly a kickoff weekend or a end weekend that can bookend to close out the festival each year. So again, showcasing the live music culture throughout Clearview at both indoor and outdoor venues. So possibly expanding what Small Halls looks like, because you are well known for that within the province. Number 5, continue to develop and deliver shoulder season signature events in conjunction with community partners. So lots of opportunity here to develop those events in softer non-peak times when you want and need visitation. So some of the recommendations, next slide, please. Work with the newly created tourism collective to explore unique event ideas, ensure that they connect to the Clearview brand and highlight the region's strengths as a tourism destination. Create an event planning committee for each event to be delivered, assigning roles and timelines. Evaluate event brand alignment, success, ensuring an adequate amount of time is provided to allow for new event traction, and expand upon downtown animation and activation during high season, and especially during midweek time periods as well. Just a little case study here. Bev's favorite example, the Gilmore Girls Fan Fest in Unionville. So they did a celebration all around the TV show Gilmore Girls, and they brought in about 1,200 people into the community, just all people who are interested in seeing where the pilot was created for the series Gilmore Girls. So thinking outside the box creatively, for Clearview, doing things like this provides great dividends. In terms of number 6, develop a theme driving tour aimed at the day trip market. In terms of actions here, next slide, please. Develop theme driving tour route that capitalize on the strengths of Clearview Township, taking visitors to quaint downtown's key attractions, farmers markets, and agritourism destinations. Increase the sustainability of the driving tour and aim to make the tour EV friendly, complete with associated charging infrastructure. I did have the idea that you possibly, with this recommendation, you could do be one of the first to do a completely EV friendly driving tour. I haven't seen that yet, where you promote and market the drive tour exclusively to EV owners. So there is some opportunity there to own that space. And then ensure each site is market ready with adequate safe parking, EV charging, if possible, signage, wayfinding, washroom facilities if required. So you have the great roads. Let's link them together as a really cool drive tour. And that's it in terms of recommendations. In terms of the summary, so we talked about target market for tourism initiatives. We talked about marketing. We talked about creating places for visitors to stay. We talked about resources, and we talked about tourism experience development. So quite a robust list. Sorry to drone on and go through that, but it's important that we get it all sort of in one place, and you can get a sense for what we're thinking of the next steps of where we want to take tourism in Clearview Township. So that's it. Next slide. Questions,
Thank you, Chris.
comments?
Well, it's a great report. I'm sure council may have some questions for you. I would like to throw one comment out right at the top, though. Early in your presentation, you mentioned that there was some 196 engagements with individuals across our community to help prepare this. I think I want to, first of all, just thank those people for giving their inputs because this is a big municipality and there are a lot of varying levels of tourism activity currently underway. And so I thought it was actually very positive that we received that kind of input to help you. Did you feel that you felt you had a pretty good understanding of tourism operations as they are today?
Absolutely. That engagement really made us happy in realizing that the community is that invested in tourism and had comments, things to say about it. So this has to be community driven because the community ultimately benefits from it. So we were really happy with that response rate.
Okay.
For sure.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, thanks.
Cool.
We'll talk more, I'm sure.
Yeah.
How about members of council? Do you have any questions to throw at the Deputy Mayor Paul is up and anybody else?
I have 8 questions.
8 questions. So get your pens ready there, folks.
I can either wait if somebody has 1 or 2, or I can start with my 8.
Let's go.
Okay.
Fire up your mic. See if it works today.
It does actually. We were
Good.
using it.
Oh, good. Thank
Chris,
you.
thank you. There was some great stuff in there. Some questionable stuff. I challenge everything, of course.
Yep.
More of these things I've got for you are comments I'd like you to, or questions I'd like you to comment on. One line you had was lack of support between with residents and tourism. Can you comment on that? And I'm referring it to not in my backyard type syndromes.
Yeah, that came up in the surveys where people are, in the height of busy season, they may, and this is somewhat anecdotal from my perspective and what I understand, across the industry. You have to wait longer in the grocery store, the gas stations lined up. Tourism does create certain inconveniences for local people. And that did bubble up in some of the surveys that
Okay, and now I understand where that comment's coming from. Number 2, define the divide between agriculture and tourism. Comment on that.
We did hear again in some of the surveys about specifically things like parking on the sides of roads and farm equipment unable to get past, people possibly trespassing on farmland, wandering off of the Bruce Trail onto somebody's private property, issues like that, where there was some conflict interaction between, a farmer and a visitor.
Okay, thank you. If we were to start a short-term an STR registration program, regulation program, and where I'm coming from with this, we just went through this with this community in regards to one of our, we'll call it a nursing home, but it was a guest home. Would we have authority in regulating them, or are we just defining standards which they would have to comply with?
With North Bruce Peninsula's example, it's entirely regulated in terms of you have to obtain a license in order to operate. If you don't obtain the license and meet the criteria within that licensing requirement, you're then eligible for a fine system. So you do have the authority to control it, especially enforcing building standards through the building code, through bylaw enforcement. They do have access to your property to be able to enforce those requirements to be.
So would this be more of a planning? Like we're just starting to go through our review, right? This is gone. We're just starting to start a review of our official plans and stuff. Is this something we should be thinking of now to incorporate into it? I guess is what I'm questioning.
Into like an official plan?
Paul, I'm going to interrupt you. I'm just going to see if Amy would like to comment on that too. She's our Director of Planning. Go ahead,
Hi,
Ms. Can.
thank you. I'm happy to speak to it. So I am familiar with municipalities that regulate short-term rentals. Certainly we are empowered as a municipality to create regulatory bylaws to regulate these types of things. And that would include licensing and that kind of thing. So we could apply a fee structure and create parameters under which short-term rentals would be permitted.
And would give us the bite to enforce it as well. Like, it's one thing to put a plan in place. If we can't enforce it, it doesn't do as much good. That's the big thing. Okay.
Yes, it would create some structure around bylaw enforcement as a potential benefit.
Okay. While we're,
Thanks.
go ahead.
Go ahead. No.
While we're speaking about that, does the planning department, in regards to what you were talking about in Meaford with the campground, for example, do we have a certain direction? Like, we've had campgrounds in Clearview that aren't there anymore. Do we have people looking at stuff like that who want to put campgrounds in place? Like, we don't have accommodation. There's no doubt about that. Is campground something that we see on the horizon?
Through you, your worship, that's a great question. I haven't encountered an inquiry so far on a campground proposal. It's something that requires a very specific parcel of land to be able to operate. So I'm sure that other municipalities have them within settlement areas, like the Memorial Park example in Meaford, and then outside. So I think it would be a matter of a proponent finding that special parcel and coming forward.
We do have the Christian campground here on Scott Street or here in Standard, just as a sidebar to that. Thank you. Chris, I'm going to keep my questions.
Keep going. No
Okay.
problem. I just want to make sure that we had the opportunity to drag Amy into this conversation on the long-term or short-term accommodation.
When you started talking about a relationship between EDC and tourism, is that a strategy recommendation that we say, the old story, if we can't have smokestacks in our community, don't ask for them. Is tourism strong enough, do you think, to build strictly an EDC strategy on?
Big question.
It's a big question. Yeah. It's one part of, right, a municipal economic development strategy. Tourism, even in areas where tourism makes up most economic development, they still have other irons in the fire, if you will. So it can't go alone. And you do have a diverse economy here in Clearview. So it's, to answer your question, it's one part of, right?
We've had some troubles in attracting people for our EDC committee, and what direction do we want to give them as council to say, okay, go at tourism, go at agriculture, go at whatever sort of thing. So just a comment on that. When you commented about the 10 most scenic items or whatever, are we in that comment, are you talking about our natural scenic spots, or are we talking also about some classic businesses in the area, i.e. Giffen Farm Markets or something like that?
Right. I think we were coming at it from the recommendation of the clear views of the viewscape of the natural landscape. So that was the focus of the top 10 clear views, was predominantly based around the natural environment.
I'm going to hit a couple of hot topics right now. Cycling. You've hit a bit of an interesting point there. We've had a lot of questions in the past, and I've been very much a proponent as far as road usage, what it's used for, our relationships between agriculture, local residents, weekends and stuff like that. The complaint has always been, in particular in Creemore, we've had, we'll say most of our cyclists have come out of Collingwood and their clubs. They've done unsanctioned road events on our roads and stuff like that. We get no, dollars or anything for doing it. The concern always in, say, their destination traditionally has been Creemore. The comment from a lot of the suppliers down there, they come in, they want to buy a water and use their bathroom. How do you get the people to be cyclists to change that mentality to say, hey, we want you here? Where do we, how do we approach something like that?
Sure. Through the Ontario by Bike program, which certifies businesses as being cycle friendly, it it teaches people how to, for lack of a better term, extract the money out of the spandex crowd. So there's ways through, great, all cyclists want great coffee. They want, good beer. They need carbohydrates. They need, they do have some needs. So there is a program in place that does teach businesses how to appeal and to market and position themselves to the cycling community. Through your own cycling events would be another way to get the most economic return out of it. So with the cycling event at Creemore Springs Brewery that they host, draws in 500-ish, 500 to 800 cyclists into the community for an event that starts and ends.
Okay, and I think that's the
Right.
critical thing. It has to start and end in Clearview.
Right. Yeah.
Because we have too many situations where they load their car up for the day, and go to Collingwood Park, get a hotel, and they bike for the weekend or whatever,
Yeah.
but not spending the money in Clearview. So, so thank you. That's good. My last.
The accommodation, like increasing accommodation, will help with that as well. So giving those people are staying in Collingwood because there's not many places to stay in Clearview. So by having more accommodation stock, hopefully you can get them to stay here as well.
My last question, sorry to take everybody's time, I'm hitting on is the power sport market. And in previous councils, they've made some decisions to not support power sports in Creemore. I think like we're going to be readdressing this from what I understand. Would you comment on that as far as the provincial thing? And John, you may want to weigh in on this a bit. I think it's very important that we represent Clearview as an entire community with power sport.
Power sports, tremendous growth in all segments, even in snowmobile, as we look at our window and see what's happening out there. But we do a lot of work, especially in the motorcycle space. We manage motorcycle touring product for different parts of Ontario, so we know it extremely well. It can be very profitable for businesses because most power sports users spend, I joke that they travel with a change of underwear and their credit card, right? They don't have the ability to travel with a lot of stuff. So they purchase when they're in market. So we're recommending that you look at it with a clear lens and evaluate, if your products and experiences align in the best way with the power sports market and see where it ends up. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. I think that's enough for now.
Deputy Mayor, all good points. And I'm glad you brought that up because that is something that this council will be addressing in the coming months. Another discussion in regards to power sports and particularly ATVs. So we'll be bringing that forward. I'll get to you in a moment there, Councillor. But a lot of these good points are really important. The cycling one is really important too, because certainly the cycling community during the election period, previous election and the most recent, lobbied for attention to their concerns to various candidates that were running for office. And that lobby effort was very focused on meeting their needs as cyclists, particularly wanting to spend huge amounts of money to create shoulder space on some of our roadways in the rural part of our community. Literally millions and millions of dollars worth of work for something that, as the deputy mayor points out, that they're spending their dollars in another community, not in our community. So it becomes a really problematic thing. How do we as a council and a community and a budget justify that type of investment in cycling? I think the point is that if we use the current roads that we have and we ask for the share the road mantra and the share the road statements, and the respect of all users on the road, whether they be driving farm equipment, or driving motorcycles or bicycles or skateboards, respect of all road users, I think is a bigger topic, which perhaps goes beyond this community, Chris.
Yeah.
So anyway, I just want to follow up on that.
Not alone. You're not alone with those concerns. There's lots of areas in the province that are dealing with the same things. Yeah.
Cool. So I have Councillor Beelan and then I have Councillor Broderick. Okay, John, I see you're madly writing over there. So just Mr. Beelan had his card up first. So we'll go to Councillor Beelan.
Thank you, Your Worship. When I was at Roma, one of the things I attended a lot was the affordable housing. And I did talk to the Blue Mountains CAO. They have this short-term rental thing. He said they don't really get anything added to their bottom line because the tax they charge covers the administration charge of running that. And they do have some bylaws that they can control what happens. And he said they may have shot themselves in the foot because there's a labor shortage, and with all these short-term rentals, there's no long-term rentals, at least not that people working in the tourism industry can afford. So same with Collingwood, Wasaga Beach, there's a labor shortage of everything for the tourism industry. They either have to give them accommodation or bust them in or something. So I'm wondering what the tourism industry is looking at to do that. There's a shortage of long-term rentals. So for us to go, okay, let's do short-term rentals, there's even going to be more shortage of long-term rentals.
Yeah, you're fair point. And North Bruce Peninsula, again, to go back to them, just because it's fresh and current, they this year are putting a cap on the number of short-term rentals to help address the affordable housing situation. So as opposed to letting it run rampant with 600-800 units, they're capping it, I believe, at 350 units for those reasons you just suggested. So they're regulating it. And in terms of the money, the money point, Collingwood, I don't think has a municipal accommodation tax on short-term rentals. So that's where you would benefit from generating some revenue from STRs through a municipal accommodation tax. So 4% applied to every short-term accommodation rental goes back into, half of it goes to the municipality, half of it goes to a tourism marketing organization. So that's how they're generating revenue from it.
Okay, Councillor? All right, thank you very much for that. Councillor Broderick.
Thank you, Your Worship. And thank you, Chris, for a great and broad spectrum of opportunities. You've certainly given us a lot of workable material to work with. Regarding the short-term rentals, that really piqued my interest. The structure could open up many opportunities, but at the same time, I realized what Councillor Beelan was referring to, and the risks involved there as well. Totally agree with the deputy mayor's comments on power sports, and just an observation. Power sport users, I've noticed, have a tendency to reward those who reach out to them. So that's something that all of us should keep in mind. And third thing I'm curious about, have you come across something, and I'm thinking in terms of the campgrounds here and perhaps the RV component. I'm wondering about an opportunity perhaps between Clearview and an established brand such as the Great Northern Exhibition. Have you come across anything like that? No. Okay, just wondering about an opportunity there as well.
All right, thank you, Councillor. Can I follow up on that, if you don't mind? Certainly the events that we have across our township, whether they be organized by the township or actually just held here year after year after year. There's a long history of a music festival that was kind of a private thing, but created a huge economic impact. It was called Gully Fest. And Gully Fest brought literally thousands of people to our community for about a 4-day, sometimes stretching over 7 days. And they had economic impact in our community. That festival doesn't happen in the large form today, but activities like the Great Northern Exhibition, the fair, which is an annual event, brings a great deal of economic activity to our community as well. Perhaps not so much in accommodations, but there may be, because to be honest, a lot of the people that use the fairground or support the fairground and support this camp on the fairground for the fair weekend, so I'm just wondering, have you looked at this tourism as far as the agricultural side of Ontario and how the fairs impact tourism?
Great question. I think we all probably agree that fairs are slowly dying, right? Because for a whole bunch of reasons, because of volunteerism and etc. But that leads it to become an opportunity. One thing I thought of for where we live, where every municipality used to have their own little small fair, which they're all struggling, going back up to like a county fair concept like they do so well in the United States, where it becomes a massive celebration. There is some opportunities for something like that to happen on a large scale, and have all the small municipalities support it, you know, through showcasing their products and livestock and things like that, you know, on a larger scale, as it would mean letting go of their small little fair, like the Tara Fair in Tara, Ontario, which is population 800.
Right.
It still runs its own little fall fair, but they're struggling, right? So maybe there's an opportunity there for the larger.
Certainly the plowing match, international plowing match, is a good example of something that kind of rotates around Ontario.
Yep.
Various counties or smaller municipalities will host it, but it does bring huge economic impact.
Yep.
It's also centered, though, again, back to the accommodation question, because it needs to be held in an area where accommodations can be made available for those that are traveling to make the fair, run their displays or competitions, and as well as the visitors who might want to come to it. So my thought is that across Simcoe County, there are several that are still very successful. The Oral World's Famous Fair is a very big event as well. The Great Northern Exhibition truly is a great event. It is a great event, and usually is a 3-day affair. Sometimes it's longer than that. But you're right, they are all struggling. So we certainly don't want to hang our hat on that as being a tourism activity, but it is a big part of the tourism that happens in our rural community. So anyway, I just found it interesting that you brought that up, John, and thanks for mentioning that.
There is, and to your point, there is tremendous interest from urban residents to become part of rural culture. So that's very much on trend and in demand right now. So anything you can do to provide those authentic rural experiences for urban people is spot on.
Well, you just reminded me actually that one of the points about Clearview Township is that while we have urban centers and rural areas, we have a lot of rural activity in our urban centers. We have backyard chickens, and they're very popular. Truly, they are. They're very popular. And so there's some communities won't do that, but we do it for sure. So anyway, members of council, do you have any other questions? Members of the staff? I'd like to ask the CAO, there's a comment in this document about economic development. And I know that our economic development committee, the deputy mayor brought it up, that we've had I've had a bit of a challenge trying to reconstitute that committee and get things started. Do you see, Mr. CAO, from your experience, is there any room for perhaps blending or refocusing EDC to serve some tourism activities in our community?
Thank you, Your Worship. I think there would be some areas mentioned in this study and the recommendations that would fit well with economic development. And overall, with the strategic direction of the municipality.
Right.
The idea here and what this is laid out, and I think the intent of any plan is to make aspects of that a priority of the municipality. Then you create an operational plan, and then you create your work plan so that you're able to implement certain things. So this gives us an opportunity when we work on our strategic plan and council decides what areas are the priorities. It goes back to staff for operational reasons. Everybody comes back with their ideas in an operational plan, looking at all the documentation that's been brought forward to see what they can deliver on. And then you match it up and it goes out in the work plans for all the staff and gets us all moving in a certain direction. And that's the goal behind it. So I could see this is a foundational piece. Other studies will become a foundational piece. Ultimately, it's the strategic direction the council has to set. And then we come back with the operational pieces to put that together.
I agree with you completely. And it should be no surprise to members of this council or members of the public. We are going to be moving into a strategic planning sessions where this council will meet with a consultant, and then we'll meet with our senior managers and perhaps other layer managers of our staff group. And then we're going to reach out to the community, have workshops to help us set more of that or to renew our strategic direction. COVID did slow us down. To the members of the previous council, we had talked about actually getting this strategic plan done, but the COVID delay honestly delayed it. And so our current strat plan expires in 2022. Here we are in February 2023. So we're going to get this done. It's going to happen. So certainly I would hope, council, that the content of this type of report will be well discussed in our strategic planning discussions. If I can, I'm going to leave one last thing. I'm going to go over to Amanda. She didn't have to come up, but I'll just say it for you, Chris and Amanda. You mentioned underneath recommendation number 6, produce the annual multi-panel fold-out official Clearview tourism map. I want to tell you, the map that's on that big piece of paper that tears off is hugely popular. When I stop into different stores across our community and somebody says, "Oh, you're the mayor. Hey, how do I get more of those maps?" People are always asking me for them. I think that's a great thing. We got to really look at that. I know we've done a great job publishing it in the past. Thank you for pointing it out. We have to keep doing that and do a better job with it. So I'm glad to see that that's in there. Thank you. Chris, thanks very much for your work on this. All right.
And Beth.
Oh, of course. Nice.
Yeah.
There's always a team.
That's right.
That's right. Well done.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for your presentation today. We're going to have a couple of small items on our agenda, and then we're going to go to an adjournment. So let me get to that. You guys, thank you, Chris. You can. All right, council. First of all, we're just going to do a motion to receive. So be it resolved that the presentation of Chris Hughes, BC Hughes, regarding Clearview Sustainable Strategic Tourism Plan be received. Motion to receive. Mr. Broderick, Deputy Mayor, any questions on the receive? All those in favor? And unanimous. Thank you very much. All right, council. Following the presentation, we now have this recommendation. So I'm going to read this. I'll look for a mover and seconder. Recommendation, be it resolved that report PCR 001 2023 dated February 9, 2023, rented lips. 2023 be received, and further that the Clearview Sustainable Strategic Tourism Plan be included as attachment 1 to report PCR 001 2023 be received and be considered as part of the strategic planning process. Can I have a mover and seconder? Mr. Walker, Councillor Janine, thank you. Are there any questions? I'm going to go to the CAO. He doesn't even know this yet, but I'm going to ask him. Mr. CAO, we have talked briefly about when we are going to do this. Have you got an idea in your mind as to when we're going to move forward on the strat plan process? Crystal ball time.
Thank you, Your Worship. As a part of the budget process, we are asking some money to be set aside to carry out the study. We could start the process of engagement of somebody that can consult us in the strategic planning process. We are going to continue with some of our in-house work where we're going to go out in the community and create a general understanding, trying to get everybody to look at the community in a similar way. They'll bring their own perspective to it, but to keep people focused on a certain point. And then we're going to follow up with our strategic planning process and have a couple of key meetings with the public as a part of that. And so that'll take a couple of months to unfold, but I think the goal here is to try to get it done fairly early in 2023. So by summer, I would suggest, or just before summer if we're lucky. And then that can be a part of our next budget process going forward as we set our priorities.
All right. Thank you for that. Members of council, there's a motion in front of you. You've got any questions? Seeing none, I'm prepared to call the motion. All those in favor? And that's unanimous. All right. So thank you very much for your presentation. Amanda Murray, thank you for your work. Terry Vachon, thank you for your work and your team. And council, our agenda picks up at 6:30 p.m. So at this time, I'm going to call a recess. And I think we'll have an opportunity to get together here shortly at a public meeting at 6:30 to talk about the budget at that time. Recess is comfortable? Thank you.